at different kind of models of talent development, and I'm now going to show you some diagrammatic examples which actually, you know, bring those kind of key theories and research to light in terms of a physical model. Here you can see on screen an example of a talent development module which looks at, you know, the different stages from fundamental movement skills, fundamental sports skills, developing those ABCs of movement, from low structured to highly structured, the different age ranges from early to, you know, adolescence to adulthood, but also looking at the growth and maturation and things to consider in terms of that development. Another model of talent development we've already considered in previous weeks is obviously this framework of participation. And obviously we're focusing on the yellow side of this model in terms of that specialisation and moving to elite status. So you've got kind of the entry into sport and the sampling here at the bottom, which, you know, we've featured, and you've got those, you know, specialisation years, investment years, and those elite performance side of it. But then you've also got the yellow side in terms of those early specialisation sports that we've looked at in previous weeks. You know, so there's two pathways in terms of that model, from sampling to specialising to investment to then obviously those probable outcomes of elite performance. And obviously then the opposite side here on the right here is early specialisation, so you have less of a sampling period, and obviously then elite performance in those early specialisation sports. So concentrating on those models, there's inherent limitations with the existing literature and understanding of athlete development. Key things we may be needing to consider is the biopsychosocial requirements at development level across the full span of athlete development pathway. Do those models look at the biological, the psychological and the social elements? What alignment support is needed for optimal talent development across the entire pathway? What are the intrinsic and extrinsic factors needed to be considered to negotiate when recruiting and developing sporting talent? So based on this, I think this following model really takes kind of talent development forward and starts to consider some of the other factors needed to be featured within talent development. The model has been developed to take into account those current gaps, and it's called the 3DAD, and is a three-dimensional representation of athlete development and highlights leading factors such as the athlete, the environment, the systems and the chance encounters. The model recognises the combined interaction of these factors, which penetrates or permeates through the entire development sequence, from non-elite to pre-elite to that elite phase. So rather than look on a kind of, you know, one-dimensional continuum, there's a three-dimensional continuum across the board. So here you can see from the diagram, it's like a funnel or a long cylinder approach, and I think the diagram at the bottom demonstrates that. You've got the athlete factors in the centre, and then you've also got the kind of stages. So if I was looking at it as a model, it would be a 3D model. I'd have the kind of the end of my rock as such, with my key writing on it, and then you've got the, you know, one section which is the non-elite to pre-elite to elite, and all those factors, you know, from the athlete factors to the system factors to the chance factors and the environmental factors will feature throughout that, you know, non-elite, pre-elite and elite stages, and they may alter and change based on the stage and the progression through that framework. So what it looks at is 7 broad athlete related factors. So looking at genetics, the physiological capacity, so this maybe includes speed, endurance and power, the morphology, which is the anthropometric and biological maturation, the psychological, which is, you know, the key attributes such as self-regulation, mental toughness, coping abilities and confidence, sport-specific skills, so this could be the perceptual, the motor abilities or the cognitive, the practice and competition investment, and the sociological development background. So this could be the family, the home environment, and those influencing factors which will have, you know, an impact on that performance, you know, from non-elite to pre-elite to elite. As an athlete extends through development, so do the environmental factors, which includes the family, the community, the coaches, the club, and daily training environment, and even the sports science. Therefore, these factors are not static and develop over time as well. This development includes system factors such as, you know, policy, national sports systems, and they can have an impact on things like funding. So this model definitely looks more of a holistic approach. So, you know, someone who's working with an athlete and performer at that elite or, you know, non-elite stage, that coach also needs to develop their skills. They may stay with that player or performer throughout their career, maybe for some of those individual sports, whereas, you know, the player might move up the framework and end up with different coaches at different stages. So again, it's having bearing in mind the fluidity of that approach rather than it just being a structured one, lineup. There's other things that are going to influence and impact on that performance and athlete development. And that system factors such as that policy and strategy is instrumental in that because, at one point, say for example, London 2012 as a prime example, there was money and investment into key sports to help development. Therefore, that money investment policy impacted on athletes and performers because they had more money, more support, so it might be more science support, increasing coaching budgets and so forth, which ultimately had an impact on their performance. The other area you need to consider is the chain factors, which are beyond control of the athlete or stakeholder and can be positive or negative. So it might be being born to particular parents is a chance factor. So if I'm born to parents who are supportive and helpful and engaged and interested in sport and will ferry me around and take me all over the country to play that sport, then obviously I'm at an advantage of a kid who maybe has the natural talent and so forth but hasn't got that supportive background. The other thing, maybe, a negative chance factor could be sustaining injuries as a result of an accident. So they again that will also then impact that talent development. Chance factors also include things as geopolitical, such as geography, politics and culture. In summary, I think looking at this model, it gives more of a holistic, a multi-dimensional perspective on development and considers all the key factors that need to be taken on board when we're developing athletes and performers. And I think those 7, related stages or related factors are instrumental in that. But also, you've got those key environmental factors, such as, the club, the family environment, the community you're working with, the sports science support, and the coaching that you're going to receive, which ultimately are also going to have an impact on whether people reach that elite stage. Hopefully this final model has given you a little bit more of an insight into key considerations when working with talented athletes. Now we're going to look at applying the theory to practice. As you can see from this diagram on screen, this is actually the Australian Institute of Sport's model for development of talent. And it's developed through a dedicated action research approach. And it's the FTM-EM framework overcomes limitations of previous athlete development models by providing a holistic and multi-dimensional approach to athlete development. So it's kind of ticking some of the key boxes that we've already discussed. It's not linear and flexible and accommodating. There are multiple re-entry and exit points to devoid fixed age boundaries and allowing broad flexibility and adaptations to all sports. In this framework, the F phase associated with the early development is a refinement expression of foundations of movement leading to lifelong physical literacy. Physical literacy is deemed to be critical in terms of key outcomes of sport, active for life, recreation and high performance sport, and has been recognised as a key strategic pillar and platform for enduring success in sporting systems. The next area is the T stage. Strategically, the function of these 4 complementary sequential phases is to maximise the pre-elite athletes and talent potential and subsequent conversion to elite status while minimising dropout or underachievement. And the T stage is basically focuses on talent, demonstrating potential, verification, practicing and achieving, and breaking through and reward. The final area of this model is the E phases. E1 represents the achievement of an elite athlete status through selection and representation at highest senior levels of international professional sport. The E2 phase represents the achievement of medal-winning performers at peak competitions such as World Championships, Olympic Games and Paralympics, World Cups and relevant professional leagues. Mastery athletes achieve sustained success at E2 by repeating their wins or relevant accolades over multiple high-performance cycles or even years. Okay, so hopefully that kind of model from Australia has given you a little bit of insight, taking the kind of the 3D AD example into practice, but obviously it still needs to consider. I don't think the model diagram itself demonstrates some of the other external factors to consider. I'd like you to actually spend a bit of time watching the following YouTube link, which basically describes this model in more detail, but also spend the time on this accessing the following website link to kind of get a little bit more of an idea about the talent development athlete pathway within Australia. I think it's a really good model and it brings in some of the key areas that we've discussed, which are important throughout this session.